Hello, Raiders. I'm Josiane Fortin, and today I'm interviewing Jennings. Diana is a personal branding expert, and I invited her because I want to see how personal branding can help self-published authors. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for asking.
And I would like to know first, tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I have been in this space actually since 2002. It's been a journey, and it's been a wonderful journey. I started out as an image consultant, actually, and it was shortly into my career that I got really curious about perception. And that curiosity led me to a 2005 Time Magazine article interview with William Arruda, who is now the world-renowned expert on personal branding. Perception was really important to me because if I wanted to understand how I was perceived, if I was being intentional, and if what I was communicating was in fact being perceived, then I knew that in helping my clients, the manner in which I was helping them was going to increase the opportunities that would be presented to them according to what they were hoping to achieve.
Right. And what is personal branding exactly?
So, in a nutshell, personal branding is your personal brand is the perception another person has. It's their interpretation of what they see, what they hear, and what they sense when they experience you. And put it this way, your brand is the sum of your education, your experience. It's what you do, it's how you go about doing it. It's your verbal communication, your nonverbal communication, and your appearance, your physical appearance, all combined. And it's what other people see that forms your brand in their heart and mind.
Okay. And why do you feel authors can benefit from having a personal brand?
Well, everybody can benefit from having a personal brand, but the question is, do you have goals? Do you have dreams that you want to achieve? Do you want to attract opportunities? And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to aligning who you are with what you want. And I think there's a lot of confusion around personal branding. So let me just say this. So personal branding is the actual process that one experiences to help uncover and develop what that brand is, because it all stems from who you are at your core. And the confusion lies because when we hear about personal branding, we really only hear about the communication aspect. People talk about personal branding as the headshots, your LinkedIn profile, your social media, your resume, your image. Now, those are all aspects of personal branding, but that's how you communicate the brand. And you can't fully communicate the authentic brand unless you do the deep dive in uncovering what your brand is. So that's what's important to the people that I work with in the many years since 2002, since I've been in this space. It's really been about helping people dive a little deeper, get a broader understanding of who they are, what is it that they want to communicate, and then communicate that through what they do, what they say, and so forth.
Makes sense. And one of the issues that I faced personally is that they say that you need to dress for the career that you want, not for whatever you're doing right now. But then sometimes it might feel unauthentic to be dressing up in certain ways. Let's say I don't like wearing heels, but then I want to be perceived like a power woman, and then I just have this image in my head that I have to walk around with heels, and I'm always confused, am I pretending to be someone that I'm not? What would you say about that?
Okay. Well, I think, I shouldn't say I think, what I have experienced is that there is so much information out there. that we get overwhelmed, as women in particular, we get overwhelmed and confused because we have designers that are saying, this is the new work clothes, this is the new power suit. We have store salespeople and personal shoppers saying that these are the trends and this is what you want to wear. And they will all provide you with something new that, yes, that you can look great, absolutely great in. But when it comes to feeling authentic, when it comes to visually representing your brand, you need to start with, what is it that I want to communicate about myself? What is it that I want people to know about me? And then you got to work backwards. You start with the message, and then you need to understand style and clothing well enough to know whether or not something is going to help to reinforce the message that you want to communicate about yourself, or is it moving you off message? Mm-hmm. And what's key with personal branding and just communication in general is that we don't want to send mixed messages. Because when we send mixed messages, it delays our ability to connect with people. And it's connecting with people that we ultimately need to do to attract opportunities.
Yeah, do you have an example of a client that you had, maybe that was giving like wrong mixed messages?
I had a client many years ago, and she was probably in her late 40s, early 50s at the time. And she came to me because she was launching a business as a management consultant. Out of school, she went into academia. She taught in the university system, and then she went into corporate America, and now she was venturing out on her own. And what she said was that she grew up with a mom who didn't allow her to do girly things, whether it was experiment with her hair, wear makeup, experiment with her style. It was pretty much, it's academics and what you know, which was what was focused upon in that family. I've raised kids, so I understand. But what happened was, once she graduated from school, she never developed that muscle, that creativity muscle for self-expression. So she went through academia, university, and now that she's out in the corporate management world, where her clients are CEOs and chairmen of the board, she just felt out of place. She knew that intellectually she was on the same level with these individuals. She just felt out of place. And what happened was, after working together, she realized how she could best authentically show up, be her best, represent who she is and all those years of experience and that knowledge that she has. And the best thing that I heard her say was, before she knew what she knows now, is that she would go into a meeting and she felt like a kid at an adult event, at an adult party. She just felt so out of place. Yeah. But afterwards, she felt like it was her party too.
So I bet that she was way more confident, like feeling that way and sharing her ideas and speaking up, like just having the right clothing.
Absolutely. And it goes beyond that, because I don't want people to think, representing yourself visually, representing your brand, it's not about gimmicks, it's not about trends, or it's not about spin. It's really about being authentic. And when you follow a process that helps to uncover and develop and nurture who it is that you are, then you can communicate it. Because I've heard clients say, oh, I don't like to get dressed, I don't want to wear makeup. And I've heard tons of reasons, from it's not in my budget, I don't want to change, I don't know what people are going to say. And so part of it is fear, but the bottom line is, how can you communicate who you aspire to be, what your goals are, and have people see that in you if you don't communicate it on the outside? So that's all it is. It's taking who you are on the inside and representing it on the outside.
Yeah, okay. And how would you balance, let's say you have a picture in your mind of what a fantasy writer should look like, and then you have your personal preferences. Like, should you try to move your preferences that way so that you look like what you think you should look like? What would you say about that?
Okay, well, first of all, I think what everyone needs to understand is that everyone already has a brand. Okay. I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but it's not a thing. A personal brand is not your image. It's not your website. It's none of those external things. It's you. And phrase that question one more time, because I just
Yeah,
lost your question.
like how to balance the way you perceive, like, let's say a fantasy writer, and then I'm a fantasy writer, so I have my personal preferences, but I see like a writer should look that way. Like, how do I balance that?
So you have your brand. You only have one brand. What is the dominant message that you want to communicate? Are you communicating? And there are different personas. So maybe when you are promoting your writing it to that particular audience, yes, you will probably tweak the visual appearance of that brand to target that particular audience.
Right.
But I think, it's a balance. It's understanding, because you are who you are, whether you communicate that aspect through different genres as an author, or, but it's also balancing the many roles you might play. An author, a fantasy author, may also be a corporate executive.
Yes.
Might be in the public eye somehow. So it's delicate balance in some cases as to whether or not it's all about how and where and when you communicate those various aspects. So it's sometimes it could be a fine line, because you don't want one aspect of your brand to potentially harm the dominant brand that you need to communicate.
Right. Like, we've seen like teachers getting fired over Instagram pictures or stuff like that, where they're like half naked and then it doesn't fit what people see as what a teacher should be. So I get what you're saying
Yes.
there. And you talked about multiple interests. And what do you think about pen name? Like, when you're writing different genres, should you have different identities and start a pen name?
If the genre could potentially do harm to the dominant brand that you are communicating who you are, then yes, a pen name would definitely be recommended.
Okay. Okay.
Because
Makes sense.
it's natural. Everyone has various aspects or different interests. And so you just, and so as the example that you illustrated about Instagram and pictures.
Yeah. And I'm putting you on the spot, but could you share with us what are the three branding fundamentals?
So the actual fundamentals of branding, I have identified 5.
Okay.
Okay, so the 5 branding fundamentals is, first of all, you need to establish a strong foundation. And that strong foundation is made up of the core of who you are. Okay, so once you've established that foundation, then then you have to assess and you have to measure what your brand is, how it's currently perceived. And this is very important because earlier I said your brand lives in the hearts and minds of the people that experience you. So you're going to lay that foundation, uncover who you are. In that process, it's also, what are your goals? What are your aspirations? What's your vision?
Mm-hmm.
And in the measuring and assessing part is that you uncover, how far, what's that distance between what people see and what it is that I want to achieve? Because that's where you uncover any roadblocks or any disconnect.
In your work, do you go so far as doing a survey or asking people around you how they perceive you? Or is that all in your mind saying, oh, I think people perceive me this way right now?
Well, that's how it starts. It starts with how you think others perceive you. But in my practice, I actually use a survey. It's a 360. And for any of your listeners that are involved in the corporate world, 360s are often used for reviews, performance reviews. But in this case, this 360 is about it's based on the positive. It's about uncovering what an individual's strengths are, what their talent, what their leadership ability is, and what's in their brand personality. Because a lot of times, someone will see something within you that you might not have the confidence to see in yourself.
Right.
So that's why when I first did this 360 back in 2005, and I've done a couple since then, several since then, it's like a gift. So yes, asking, but people aren't always forthcoming with information because they may not want to hurt your feelings, or it may be difficult for them to give praise or compliments. And so the 360 that I use, it's completely anonymous. And it goes out to people that know you both professionally and personally. And it gives you tremendous insight. And once you have that information, you take a look at where you are, how people see you, and then you can start to narrow the gap to see what skills you need to refine, what skills maybe you need to adopt. And then next comes the communication. You put a communication strategy in place. It's what are you going to communicate it? How are you going to communicate it? Where? And to whom? So there's a whole strategy around the communication aspect. And then you need to take a look at, you need to align. You need to make sure that you are aligned with what it is that you ultimately want to achieve, and then learn how to present your brand. And when I say present, a lot of people's minds automatically go to image and appearance, but there are actually 8 different elements to how you present your brand. And actually, that's something that I'd like to offer all the listeners to your podcast. If they text the number 33777, the word elevate, ELEVATE, the word elevate to 33777, they'll get the exercises, a couple of the exercises that I use in module 5 of my online course. And I think I also sent you the link to that, didn't I?
Yeah, it's not the phone number. You sent me an actual URL. So is that okay if I share this?
Both ways. Absolutely.
Okay,
they can get there both ways.
All right. And could you share at least one so that we can hear a little bit what's included in the 8?
In the 8, well, presence is an acronym. Okay, so the first one, P, having a positive attitude. Positivity it's magnetizing. It really is. And what we want to make sure that we don't do when we're having a bad day, or there are some people that always see the glass as half empty rather than half full, or the fact that you can always empty it and start all over again. But it's, making sure not to exhaust people with negativity. And, we're always going to have up days, we're always going to have down days, but just, it's about being optimistic and being a problem solver rather than a problem inducer.
Yeah, it does sound like more fun to hang out with positive people than negative people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I was curious, I feel like people often get confused between the brand and the communication. And so I know we touched a little bit on that, like it's just one like it was like the fourth step that you talked about for the fundamentals.
Mhm.
But like how does brand goes like bigger than just communicating? Like, how is it related to communicating?
Branding, it's all about how you're going to represent yourself. How are you going to show up in the world? What are people going to be saying about you when you're not there? Strong brands are more visible. Their presence is felt. Strong brands have, they earn more money. If you think of brands, think of Starbucks, you know, a commodity versus a brand. I don't even enjoy Starbucks coffee, but I am a fan of Starbucks for the environment that they have built for their customers. Strong brands, when you are aligned with what it is that you want to achieve and you are achieving it, you're more fulfilled in the work that you do. You're a happier person. You feel more fulfilled. You're accomplishing more because you've aligned who you are with what you want. And stronger brands also earn more money.
Yeah, it does sound like you need to have to build on your self-confidence, maybe. Like some people must be self-conscious about putting themselves out there, finding their authentic self and like showing uh, their real self to other people. Sometimes we wear masks, and I'm getting that it's not the point at all here to pretend to be someone you're not. You find who you are deep down, and then you want to show that in the best way possible. So like are some of your clients self-conscious about like dressing up? Like sometimes you have more attention to yourself when you look great. Like what do you do with those customers?
Well, I often think of the two Jills. I don't know if I've had more than two clients by the name of Jill, but I call it the story of the two Jills. And one woman, the first Jill, came from an affluential background and was able to shop at all of the high-end boutiques and stores that she wanted to, but she never felt comfortable in her clothing. So that's basically what you were referring to. You're referring to clothing. And the second Jill was very self-conscious. Actually, she started to cry when we first met because she was that scared. But she wanted so bad. She wanted to learn, and she wanted to start feeling good about herself. What she said to me is that, you know what, I'm tired of people looking at me, because she had struggled with family, being the primary caregiver to family members that were ill, and she had gained some weight and she wasn't feeling attractive. And so, we started our time together quite emotional. And as we did with the first Jill as well, but it was different. And what the second Jill said to me was, I'm tired of people looking at me because of how I present myself, as I'm incompetent, and I'm not. I'm a smart woman. And so we took it slow, and it came down to helping them both just rediscover who they are, first of all, and how to dress. As I said earlier, there's so much influence with fashion and designers and celebrity that we fail to look at ourselves as individuals and learning how to dress the body that we live in, instead of trying to dress a body that we see. And then it doesn't work on us because our bodies are different. When it comes to bodies, there are between 80 and 90, I can't remember off the top of my head, it's higher, 90 different figure variations that affect how clothing fits our bodies. And when we begin to understand what they are, then when we put something on, we understand why it doesn't work for our figure. It's not that there's something wrong with us. It's just that when that garment was made, it was made with a different body shape in mind. So with Jill, number one, she learned that the clothes that she was wearing were not in proportion with her figure, because we need to dress proportionately to, we have to learn how to dress this body. And with Jill, number two, it was just coming back to, okay, this is the body that you have. Yes, you're holding a few more pounds than you would like, but it's important. Dress the body that you have now. Learn to dress the body that you have now, because that in itself helps to increase your self-confidence. You start to feel better about yourself. And then when you start to feel better about yourself, then you start thinking, okay, I can now think about maybe my diet, or maybe getting back to exercise. Instead of it being this vicious circle, which it can be, because how we dress affects what we think about ourselves. And how we think affects how we feel. How we feel affects how we act and how we behave. And how we act and behave affects how people respond to us, which then can cause this vicious cycle. So if we learn to present ourselves in the best way possible, it might be with a little bit of makeup to highlight features so that they don't fade back into our faces. Especially today with video, it's very easy for our features to kind of disappear. People will respond to us differently. And when we get those responses that are positive, when we sense positivity from someone else, then it makes us feel better.
Yeah.
And then it helps keep the thoughts and the feelings and the actions and behavior on a positive note rather than spiraling downward.
Okay. And can you give our listener one tip to get started on their personal branding?
First and foremost, you need to have a vision. And I have found, especially during this pandemic, vision cannot be more important. Having a vision for your life, actually, I've identified two visions that we have to have for our life, but I'll talk about one, which is that personal vision. Think about your character. What type of person do you want to be? Because that becomes your true north. When you understand what that is, that helps in decision making. A vision can act as a decision filter. So it's important to understand what that vision is, not only for the type of person that you want to become, but that second vision is, what's that vision that you have that's bigger than you.
Okay, so first of all, the writer needs to come up with their vision of their career, or themselves, or both.
Both. And but also it goes broader than the vision for their career. Think about how they want to affect the reader, the world, through their writing.
Okay, yeah, that's good. I guess it would pertain to themes that you want to address in your books and stuff like that. Like, we often have to think about what messages we want to send to other people. I know that I want to start writing more positive stories to bring some joy into people's lives. So I guess that would become part of my personal brand in the future. So it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for sharing. And if people want to know more about you, about your work, where can they connect with you?
They can connect with me on my website, through my website, dianajennings.com is the website. They can contact me through that. They can drop me an email, hello@dianajennings.com. I have an online course that I'm going to be launching soon, and if they were to download the ebook Elevate Your Presence, that will put them on my email list. And I don't send out a lot of emails, but they would receive information about the e-course when we get closer to launch date.
Okay, awesome. I'll make sure to share those links in the show notes. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's